Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour brought to you by NAAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, where it is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connections. I'm Marcie Keithley, Board President and your host for this evening, along with fellow board members Jennifer Fosing and Miss Dury with us tonight. We're excited that so many of you are here, and I know the weather is a problem across the United States. It's really freezing here in southern Indiana. We've had some snow, and I think, Jen, you and Beth have snow up there too, don't you? Yeah. If you're joining us for the first time, let us know in the chat room. Feel free to ask, leave your comments, your questions, but we will continue recording till about 8 o'clock. And at 8 o'clock, we'll stop the recording and open it up to questions from all of you. So before we get started, we've got a few housekeeping items and some announcements. Again, we want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. Portions of this event are recorded and may be shared in our private happy hour group on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Please remain on mute, raise your hand or screen or the virtual hand to be recognized. And you're welcome to post questions or comments in the chat. Also, if you are experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional or call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988. Okay.
Well, I know we have typically done these at the end, but we wanted to talk to you guys really quick about our other programs, and then about the summit, Untangling Our Roots, that we are doing with Right to Know. So I will bring up, this is the website, it's untanglingourroots.org, and I will drop that in there. This will be in Louisville, Kentucky, March 30th through April 1st. It is, actually, we won an award for our website design. We didn't design it, but the company that did. But it is the first ever summit that unites the adoption, assisted reproduction, and the non-paternal event communities into one amplified voice. We've got over 2 days of events, including live entertainment, and it's now 60 speakers, podcasters, authors, just lots of time to meet and connect with people. We are also feeding you breakfast, lunch, snacks, and unlimited drinks. But this is where you go to register. Ridge House, and for those of you who know, it's made a really cool video. It's got a lot of your friends in it that you're going to see. If you know anybody that wants to become a sponsor or an exhibitor, they can do that from here. And then if you follow us on social media, the Right to Know Facebook page, the NAAP Facebook page, and we also have an Untangling Our Roots Facebook page. Amber Jimerson has been making all the graphics, promoting all the different presenters that we have. So you can get a little bit more information on those as well. So I'm gonna stop share, and then I'll just run through our programs real quick. David Bowl does Adoptee Path to Recovery. That meets bi-monthly on Tuesdays at 8:30 Eastern time. And I will drop all the links to these programs in there. We have Amber Jimerson, who does First Families, Birth Parents Journeying Together. That is monthly on the second Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Dr. Joyce, and she has got her next one coming up here next week. It's Lost and Found, Then What? Exploration of After Reunion, and it's the holiday show, not the Martha Stewart edition. She wanted to assure me to tell you that, but that meets monthly on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then we have our newest one is Danielle Gaudette, Self-Love Essentials for the Adoption Constellation. It's been really well received, very popular. She meets monthly on the last Thursday at 7:30. So obviously she has shifted this month as well because it would fall on Thanksgiving. But I will drop the links to any of our programs in the chat for you.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Okay, I'm really excited to introduce our spotlight guest this evening. Macy, how are you tonight?
I'm good.
Good. We're so glad to have you. We're looking forward to this. I'm going to share just a little bit about you to those that don't know Macy, okay? Let's just learn just a little bit about Macy. Macy Oosthuizen, and I got it right the first time.
Okay.
I get a point for that, right? And she's a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Finding Spaces Therapy, a boutique private practice in Juniper, Florida. In her therapy practice, Macy specializes in working with teens and adults, post-adoption and donor conception. She is adjunct. I'm tongue-tied. Adjunct professor at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, teaching in the Graduate School of Social Work, and sits on the FAU Center for Autism and Related Disabilities Mental Health Task Force. She has 200-level yoga teacher certification, as well as training in mindfulness and play therapy. So we're so welcome to have you join us tonight, Macy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I wanted to just say one apology off the bat is I got these new clear liners for my teeth, and I'm just getting used to them. It's been a week, but so if I sound kind of lispy, or if you see me like it does sometimes get caught. So I apologize if it looks a little goofy, but it goes along. It's very on brand for me, by the way. So anything goofy is completely on brand. So thank you for having me. I'm super excited, and I have like a PowerPoint. If I do the PowerPoint, can people also see me, or is it just going to be the PowerPoint? They can still see me. Do we know? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll see. So because I just want to know if you're there. So okay, I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Hopefully that works. Does that work okay? All right, I can still see you guys too. All right, great. Hold on, I'm gonna make you larger. Okay, so okay, so one of the things I was talking with Marcie and Jennifer, and like what would be something cool to talk about. We talked about creative methods for healing, and maybe different ways that people don't realize that's part of healing. And, especially those of us in adoption land, and so this is, I've done all the things. So let's just see, I will, here we go. Okay. So healing isn't a straight line. This is kind of, I'm sure we've all figured this out, but I'm not an expert on all things. Even as a therapist in the room, the person who's in the room with me is the expert on them. I never want to come across as some, guru or, person who's telling you this is how you should do life or things. This is coming from a place of, I have seen some, as an adoptee, I'm an adoptee. I grew up I'm from the baby scoop era. Closed adoption, New York City, grew up with an adoptive family that I'm sure this is all of our stories. It looked nothing alike. A lot of you know my story. And I knew nothing. They told me nothing. They just said I was European. They said my parents were two kids who came from, who were at Columbia University and got into trouble. And that was the furthest from the truth, it turns out. So it's kind of kooky crazy, my story. And I'm going to show you a little clip of how I've done my healing, and I've healed even more since then. So we'll talk more about that. But where I'm coming from is everything I always talk about is stuff I've tried. I've been through. I have walked through the fire. There have been days where I didn't know if I could get out of bed, if I could function. And one of the things that everyone always has, my whole life has said about me, is that I present as completely like a professional, articulate, put together person, but I'm like a duck on the water. Inside, I'm a tornado. And not so much anymore, but growing up. So, and I decided to become a therapist specializing in post-adoption because I kept going to people who told me I should just be grateful I wasn't left on the street. And I would be like, well, how did I get adopted if someone didn't leave me somewhere, right? So it's like, that is just the, thank you for your really annoying, non-empathetic response. And so I grew up with a younger brother who was a transracial adoptee, and I saw a lot of what he went through growing up in a all-white neighborhood. And yeah, I mean, like it was really, it was eye-opening to me. And he's also now a therapist, an LCSW in the New Jersey, New York area. So if you're looking for anyone, he's fabulous. But and we talked our whole lives. Like he's one of my best friends, and to this day we talked about how there isn't anyone out there, like people who understand what's going on. So I'm sure you've heard this all before, and it really motivated me. Although I had a business career, I ran support groups from the 90s, on, or co-ran them. Went to amazing support groups. I think David is still at my support group that I started with in 1995. And that place has my heart, and that the folks there became my family. And without understanding and meeting other adoptees, I would not be where I am today at all. That group saved my life completely, 100% saved my life. And once I started being able to really articulate what was going down, then I started figuring out, other people might need what I needed. And also as a teenager. So that's why I specialize in teens and adults, because there's very few people who specialize in teens and teen adoptees, and then transracial adoptees, and so although I sit here as you can't see me, but I'm 6 feet tall, but like the big white woman, I try to tell my, my teens in front of me, or transracial teens, like, I get it. I look like your adoptive parents. I hope that I can gain your trust and understand, like that will never completely understand, but I'm all you got in Florida right now. So if there was someone else, I'd pass them along. But so one of the things I wanted to talk about is the great sleep, as Betty Jean Lifton calls it, right? Or as adoptees. And this is also along with first parents too, by the way. I find I also work with a lot of beautiful first parents, and I've had a support group here in Florida. I had it for 7 years. I took a break to take care of my health, and we're starting up again in January. It's an adult adoptees and first parents only group, and it's in person. And then I have a Zoom Florida only teen group. So they have to be in Florida because they're both therapeutic groups. So I want to make sure to work with folks in my area. But with that said, before I got to the Morristown group, I got a copy. Someone told me, I think maybe I got to the Morristown group, and then maybe everyone told me, I can't remember exactly what happened, but they said, you have to get the Lost and Found book by Betty Jean Lifton. And I really felt like it was like she was writing this for me. I was like, how is she in my head? And so I don't know if any of you have read the chapter on waking up from the great sleep. Do you know that section? I don't know if you know it, but I might, if you don't mind, share a little bit. Would that be okay? Okay, you guys are all like, oh, okay. And also I forgot my glasses, which is great. So I'm just gonna hold it like way out here. My arms are just not long enough, as my husband says. But okay, it'll be fine. Okay. So I like to think of adoptees as being in the great tradition of sleepers. This is Betty Jean Lifton. It is as if the act of adoption put us under a spell that numbed our consciousness. When we awaken, it startles us to realize we might have slept our lives away, floating and uprooted. The adoptee is just beginning to raise questions that Travers explores in the Sleeping Beauty legend. What is it in us that at a certain moment suddenly falls asleep? What lies hidden deep within us, and who will come at last to wake us, and what aspects of ourselves? Put psychologically, adoptees are asking how they managed to repress so much as children, to numb the natural curiosity within them, to accept society's mandate that they should now know something as primal, that they should not know something as primal as who gave birth to them. At what point did they give up and go along with the prevailing system? And as if sensing intuitively that acquiescence meant emotional survival and struggle meant, and at what point, this is what glasses will be super helpful. But anyways, at what point did they give up and go along with the prevailing system, as if sensing intuitively that acquiescence meant emotional survival and struggle meant disintegration? Even as they try to penetrate those mysteries, they sometimes long to fall back into that former delicious sleep, so free of conflict and ambivalence. But it's too late. They know by now that the prince who placed the kiss on the Sleeping Beauty's brow was but that aspect of herself which was ready to awaken. She had no choice but to arise and fulfill herself as an adult in the real world. And it's just super powerful, because I think even a lot of first parents who have spoken to me have said, they pushed it so far down that then one day, it's like it could no longer be contained, right? So it was like, I have to deal with this. Like I have to either find or whatever that looks like, right? And also when folks come to me, they realize I have to deal with this now. Like, and that is what growth is. And that is what changes. So when are we ready to grow and change? When the current state is too uncomfortable. And that's kind of where we're going. And so how do we heal, right? So what do we do to heal? And part of coming out of the fog or waking from the great sleep is understanding how adoption shows up in our lives. And I just wanted to touch on, because I think, we'll go through this fast. And if you have further questions, we can talk about that. But, I think a lot of you might know this already, or just a refresher that hypervigilance in us as adoptees, we notice nonverbal cues. We try to predict people's emotions. This is all in our trying to be safe and trying not to be abandoned, right? So we're all just constantly in, awareness of, I saw someone's lip go up. I saw their brow furrow. When I work with adoptees, one of the issues that I have to really be conscious of is that I furrow my brow a lot when I'm thinking. My husband says it's my thinking face. It's not my resting bitch face, but I'm thinking or I'm processing, and it can look scrunchy, and I can see adoptees start, oh, did I say something wrong? And I have to really make sure to relax my face. I've considered the Botox even, because I'm like, is this, I don't want to affect my clients in that way. But so because us adoptees, that's what we do, right? And people who have trauma, hypervigilance is a trauma response, right? Codependence, being indispensable, making sure you are indispensable to the people in your lives so that you won't be abandoned, because they can't live without me, right? And not stating your needs, not being able to say what you need. And I don't know if any of you remember the movie Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. Do you guys remember that movie? I swore at the end they were going to say that she was an adoptee. I swore. I was like, she's adopted. And I was like, oh no, we never find out why she's just a runaway bride over and over. And so, because she had no sense of whatever she liked was based on that fiance that she was with at the time. And that's a lot of us do that. Irritability, anger, sometimes people think that I had a client say to me yesterday, my baseline is irritability. And she's a newish adoptee, transracial adoptee. And I said, oh, why do you think that is? And it was like, I don't know. I never really thought about it. I just thought it was my personality, right? And I was like, we'll be getting to that, right? So over independence, extreme passivity, either of those two extremes can definitely be how our adoption shows up in our lives. A hard time regulating our emotions. If you're having big emotions all the time, right? I think I'm hearing somebody has their, I think it was, maybe it's Elizabeth. Are you muted? I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. Okay, there. Okay, great. I could just hear myself like say after saying. So with that said, so this is sometimes people say you're too sensitive, or, you know, you have such big emotions. And it's like, no, I have big emotions, right? Like, of course I do. And but what do we do with it, right? So a bunch of others, with these liners, I won't be able to say this, but high startle response, I did it. Sensory stuff. A lot of people don't realize that us adoptees and people with trauma, but adoptees especially, because our trauma is pre-verbal, we have so much sensory stuff. You may not even know it's sensory stuff. I could talk more about that later, but a relationship with food that might be off. So maybe if you're a transracial adoptee or an inter-country adoptee, and you spend time in an orphanage or in foster care and didn't have ready access to food. Maybe in your foster care, even though it was in the US, maybe they had a bunch of kids and didn't feed you when you were hungry, but fed you when they were preparing food. That can really alter your relationship with food. Career confusion, identity, feeling unanchored and unmoored. And I talk about that a lot. Not liking how you look, hating mirrors. This is a lot of adoptee. This is so much stuff here, right? And struggle with relationships. And that's a very vague, obviously, but so some of us are too fast getting into relationships, like, love me, right? And then, oh, wait, I don't know if I love you so much. And then we drop people like a hot potato, or we're too slow to warm, right, to a relationship, or we won't even get into a relationship at all because we're just going to be abandoned eventually. So what's this point? Or we have a push-pull in our relationship. So it's like, come close to me. No, get away from me. No, come close to me. No, get away from me. And that is, you know, that's just a lot of trauma. That's just people with trauma. But so again, healing isn't a straight line. So I'm sure all of you have dealt with this, where events in your lives can trigger your adoption stuff. Maybe you don't even connect it that it's triggering your adoption stuff. I know that when I have an amazing and gorgeous stepson. I mean, I usually just refer to him as my son, but he's my husband's biological son. He is not my biological son. And when he was going through a really rough time, it was triggering his abandonment by his biological mother. And then it was triggering my abandonment. And we were just triggering each other. And I knew logically what was happening, but emotionally it felt really ooky. And so then I stepped out of myself and went to a therapist and said, hey, like, I know what's going on. I just need some tools to help me in these situations. And so sometimes we don't even know, like it could be your neighbor. And then you're just like, and like, why am I so upset about this? And it's like, oh, this feels like I don't have a sense of control, which, by the way, for us adoptees is another huge trigger, like feeling out of control or unmoored, and losing control constricts us and mastery expands us. So we cannot feel mastery in our emotions, in our life, if we don't feel safe, connected, or in control. And there's a great book called 7 Core Issues in Adoption and Permanency. And I wrote it down there for you guys. So I kind of just summarized the whole chapter there for you. But with that, here's what I wanted to like just sort of give you. This is my down and dirty tips and in healing. And this is what I give. I'm going to give you like a year of therapy. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm going to give you a year of concepts, and then we're going to get to the funny part. But first of all, one of the things that, when I have an adoptee or a first parent or anyone who has a trauma history in front of me, one of the things I talk about, and I make my clients sit in this place and they get so mad at me. And I had one yesterday be like, how long is this going to take? I just notice my feelings hurt. And I'm like, I know. And so you have to notice your feelings. This is a self-awareness piece. And so some people are like, oh, I know. Oh, I notice I'm angry, or I know, and it's not just noticing, but really just sitting with it. And people are like, what does that look like? And so if I'm anxious, I'm nervous about speaking to you all tonight, let's say. And so earlier today, I noticed I was being like, very distracted. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I can't focus. Then I can sit with myself and say, oh, I notice I'm having a hard time focusing. I notice that I'm struggling really just being present. I wonder what's going on, and let your curiosity guide you. And I can say, oh, I'm nervous about tonight. And I should review my talk again, and that might help calm my nervousness, or I can just allow the feeling. So I'm allowed to be nervous. I'm talking to a whole bunch of people all over the world. And, I'm allowed to be nervous. I'm allowed to be anxious, and that's okay. And that is the next step. When you allow, I will tell you, I had a teen transracial adoptee in my office. This was years ago. And she said, I've been working with therapists my whole life. And I said, okay. And she said, I'm supposed to, I'm not supposed to be so angry. And I'm supposed to not be anxious. And so I can't stop being anxious, and I can't stop being angry. And I said, okay. I said, but you're allowed to be angry. And she was like, wait, what do you mean? And I said, you're allowed to be angry. Like, you were just plucked from your culture, plucked from all of that, dropped here with a whole bunch of white people, and you're supposed to just be like, nothing to see here. I said, you're allowed to be angry. There's a lot of loss and grief and confusion in that. And she was like, so you're saying I can be angry? I said, you get to be angry. Allow yourself to be angry. Now, what we do with that is a whole nother story, but you're allowed to be angry. I said, you're also allowed to be anxious. And I was like, I don't know how you go through the life you went through and not be anxious. Like, there was other things. And so she said, I've been in therapy since I was 3. I'm now 17. And no one has ever told me that I could be angry. And I said, yep. And she was like, I've been trying to stop this my whole life. And I said, yeah. So when we try to stop anger, then we give anger something to push against, and anger will stick around. Now, you're allowed the emotion. How you show your anger, again, is a whole nother story. So we can't punch people. Oh, well, there are some people I like to throat punch beyond, even as a therapist. That's my humor, sorry. But anyways, you're allowed to, you're allowed to feel it. What you do with it is another story. And then the next piece is, so you notice how you're feeling, you allow that emotion, and then you now can use a tool. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Beyond that is practice and mastery. And mastery comes when you can use the tools with self-awareness and ease. And I will tell you that now, as a therapist, adoptee, there are times where my stuff bubbles up. And I always think of it as like a little devil on my shoulder, but it's like, I don't know what it looks like, but it's a little creature. And I'll be like, oh, hello, haven't seen you in a while. Don't need you. Thank you so much. Adoption trigger. Thank you. But I got this. And I can now, the type of therapist I am, is an integrative therapist. And I love IFS, which is internal family systems. I love CBT. I pull in mindfulness. I pull in all the things. And sometimes it's noticing what age that part is that just popped up. And I'll be like, how? And this is a friend of mine said this to me yesterday. I was on the phone with another adoptee therapist, and she said, what age is that? We were talking about something. And I was like, that's a great question. And I'm like, let me just sit with that for a second. And I was like, oh, I said, oh, that's high school. That's high school me. And then she was like, what does high school you need? And then we kind of like walked through it. But, now it happens within like 2 minutes. But this is years of practice. So what I'm talking to you guys about is not anything that I don't struggle with, or I don't use on my own, or haven't, and do a lot of workshops and a lot of time with clients. So I hope you guys can see this. This is my goofy. I love metaphors. And I think some of you who are in Tampa, I may have used this metaphor. I can't remember if I did, but I'm a metaphor and puns. I also love puns, by the way, but metaphors I love. And so one of the things I always talk about with my clients is that you should imagine yourself as a bus driver, and, and like your life is the bus. Okay. And you're the bus driver. So that's you. right? That's you right there behind the, I tried to make a funny picture of a bus driver, but my cut and paste skills were not so great. So as a bus driver, you have to stop at the bus stops, right? What kind of bus driver would you be if you're not allowed to stop at the bus stop? So if you blow past the bus stops, they're going to fire you, right? So you have to, like, that's life. Like, you have to stop at every bus stop. And when you stop at a bus stop and you open your doors, and who do you see? Anxiety wants to get on, and you're like, really? Anxiety? Come on. Like, or you just come, it's like, come on, it's a bus stop. And the anxiety is like, oh, it's another one. This is a different anxiety. And you're like, great. And so a lot of people think that they would slam the doors on anxiety and be like, no, 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 I'm not letting you on. Well, guess what happens? Anxiety just goes to the next stop and the next stop and the next stop and, you know, et cetera. And as you can see, who's lined up here? We have anxiety, we have self-doubt and fear is clearly huge, right? So I don't even know if fear can get on this bus, but fear is going to figure out a way, right? So as the bus driver, we can allow, this is the allow part, right? You can allow these on your bus. So you're feeling anxiety. Okay, you're allowed on the bus. Fine, get on the bus. But guess what? You have to get to the back. You and self-doubt can go sit in the back, smoke cigarettes. I don't even know what you're doing back there, but like, you guys can go hang out, because often anxiety wants to drive. Anxiety is like, no, no, move over. I'm going to drive. And often we will be like, oh, okay. Yeah, you probably know better than I do. And anxiety drives to panic town. Anxiety drives crazy. Anxiety doesn't stop at stop signs. And you're like, oh my God, anxiety, you're wild. Stop it. And so anxiety will, I mean, they all are not good drivers, by the way. And you're the only driver, and you should be the only driver. So I know it's a little goofy, but I have lots of clients, adults, who will actually have one this morning who said, oh, Macy, guess what? I finally was able to get anxiety to go to the back of the bus. And I was like, yay, how did it happen? And she told me, and so there are different ways, but sometimes you do have to just talk to yourself and get anxiety to the back of the bus and just tell them that they can't drive, right? So they're allowed on, that's allowing the emotion, you just aren't driving. So, okay, so I'm going to show you a little clip. Please be kind, okay? This is old, but I'm going to show you a clip, and I'm going to stop my share for a second while I get the clip ready. But, oh, my heart's like, hold on. I hope it comes across okay. It's not the best quality. Maybe, let me see if I can. Okay. No, I think it's the only way I can do it. Okay. Hopefully it will come across okay. I think I got to do it like this. And hopefully I hope you guys can hear it. So we'll see. But I'm gonna use soups I like you. I swear. I'm a Mexican from Germany. Yeah, that's Mexican. No, all right, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, what's so funny is, like what's so funny is when I tell people I'm in Florida, that I'm a Mexican from New Jersey, adopted, don't follow that up with your Jersey accent. My biological parents were from Mexico. They got pregnant while they were engaged. They freaked out. They didn't tell anybody. They got married, went on this honeymoon around the world. And stopped off in their city, gave birth to me, gave me a protection, and then went back to Mexico to be like, okay. So one of the ways that helps me and I use a lot in my therapy actually, is that I use humor. And I started it in college and doing some stand-up, and I never told anybody. I would just quietly go off to like a pub, and just do my little thing and come back. And I took this class in college called comedic writing, right? It was all different kinds of comedic writing. It was an impossibly hard class. And anyways, the final was a stand-up routine. I didn't speak a word in that class. I was barely I think I was, skating away with like a C, right? And then they, for my final, I did this whole routine, not that one, but I, did talk about, my story, a little bit of my story. And my professor's face, it was being filmed too. My professor's face and everyone's face was like, you don't say one word the entire semester, and then you get up and just do this routine. Like, this is crazy. But it felt so good because when I was young, I never outed myself as an adoptee. I had a lot of shame about being adopted, and I never told anybody I was adopted. And when I told my two best friends, I sobbed and sobbed. And then they said, what do you have to tell us? And I said, I'm adopted. And they were like, oh my gosh, okay, that's fine. And they said, we thought you were going to tell us you had cancer or something. And I was like, no. And it was the first time I had ever said it out loud. And I was 19 years old. I'd never said it out loud. And so for me to sneak away and do open mic nights and things like that, it was really healing, and I felt like I was getting stronger. I got to tell you, I had to practice saying I'm adopted, like in the bathroom, because it would come out like I would cry. And I think every time I went to the Morristown support group meeting in New Jersey, I think for an entire year, I cried, bawled my eyes out for a year every time I opened my mouth. And they'd be like, it's okay. That's what happens, So what do you need to do, right? So I think tell your story in any way. What feels right for you, right? It doesn't have to be the same way that anyone else tells the story. You don't have to get on the stage. But if you feel like that might be healing for you, there are so many avenues for that. Open mics, poetry slams, The Moth, if you guys know The Moth, and if you don't, you should know The Moth. It's a podcast and an amazing storytelling outlet. Writers groups. Anne Heffron, I'm sure everybody knows Anne Heffron, she has writers groups, but if it's not, you don't have to be like amazing. Or I did exercises with Anne Heffron where she had us write as if we were with the perspective from our guts. I bawled my eyes out, and she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, oh no, this is, and I made a big connection, and she just thought that was like, she was like, okay, so all of this really helps, right? Just getting it out, and you don't have to do in the traditional way. I think all of this is also great companions to therapy. I'm very much a tools therapist. So I will often ask a client if they want tools. If they want tools, I got them. And so if they tell me they journal, I jump all over it, right? And so then I have all kinds of things we can do. If they say they love storytelling, whatever it is, how about the Good Adoptee play? Look at our dear Ms. Backner. She is amazing. If you haven't seen the Good Adoptee, definitely sign up for the, I think you can watch it over Zoom in her next show. But there's so many ways that those of us have kind of gotten out our story. Photography is amazing and beautiful. I also love photography to use as a storytelling tool. You know all the things, right? So I kind of clump them in different categories. I'll just quickly do that and then I'll be finished. Is that, I think of things like this, like your internal methods of creative healing can, I think of it like internal methods and like what you might do alone, or you can do them with friends, but listening to podcasts. I don't know. Like I think also I'm a huge fan of podcasts. So If you need any suggestions, I'm sure these ladies, there's so many good ones out there. Reading books. Oh, by the way, there are podcasts that are great that are not necessarily adoption connected, like Family Secrets by Danny Shapiro or Criminal. I don't know if you know Phoebe Judge, but she does this podcast called Criminal. And one of the first episodes I ever heard from her was about the Georgia Tan story. And she has no connection to adoption. She just thought it was so there's a lot of podcasts out there that if you want to hear some stuff, but you also just want to listen to people telling their story, it doesn't have to be, that can be healing alone. Reading books. Now, chanting, people are like, really? I'll tell you, I never would have thought that I'd be a chanter, but I'm a chanter. I love chanting. Okay. And up until very recently, I usually do it every day. I have a particular mantra for Ganesha, my favorite Hindu god. He is the remover of obstacles. I see Louise is like, yes, Ganesha. So all my folks who love my Ganesh, I never thought I would like it, but I joined a yoga class, and it was titled Walking in Your Truth. And I was like, oh, I got to do this one. Right. And so I did the yoga class, and they all started with this chant. And I had goosebumps everywhere, and it was so amazing. And so I usually do it every morning, 108 times. That's how it goes. And it's super healing for me, and it really grounds me, and I love it. And there's lots of ways you can look on YouTube. If you want to hear more from me about it, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Meditation, huge fan. Like, meditation is probably the next thing that has saved me. People have a lot of misconceptions around meditation. My favorite meditation app is called Insight Timer, and I probably should have put it in there, but I can put it in the chat. But Insight Timer, it is fabulous. It's free, and you get like 1 million types of meditations, and it has all kinds. So walking along with doggos, I'm a huge fan of the doggos. So, if you have a dog, by the way, that's healing alone. Playing with your pets, all kinds of fun things. So I'm not going to get into but rituals, ceremonies, there's tons I can give you, but movies that don't have to be fully adoption related. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen My Octopus Teacher, and if you haven't, run to Netflix and watch it tonight, because it is amazing. I've seen a lot of, people giving me the whoop, whoop. It's amazing, and it's mental health related. So I love it. If you love animals too, I think a lot of us adoptees are big animal people, and rescue animals. So it ticks all the boxes. Cooking, baking, crafting, exercise, yoga, dance party. Now, Tampa, I don't know, Marcie or Jennifer, who is the kitchen dance? Was that Marcie? Did you do kitchen dancing? Okay. Oh my God, I love kitchen dancing, by the way. Huge fan. My parents used to kitchen dance to Elvis. And so have great memories. We always turn on the radio, and my little brother used to come downstairs and go, the la la, like he would point to the radio, like he would want the radio on every morning, and we would do kitchen dancing. And so I think I'm a huge fan. And I think, all of that is great. Doodling, drawing. Oh, that's supposed to be say painting, by the way, not painting, but maybe that was a Freudian slip. So, and I have this client that does healing rocks. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but she paints all these rocks with she's not an artist by any stretch, but they're so cute, and she's gotten better over the years, and then she hides them around town, and people find them, and she created a little Facebook group. And so I think that's so much fun. So it kind of keeps her. I have to, give a shout out to Marcie's book here is perfect it falls perfectly in this category of creative healing. So there are external methods that are community based. You can do any of the other ideas with a group. Walking group. I love a walking group, by the way, especially when I was in New York. I'm not in New York City anymore, or DC. I had a walking group in DC. Florida is a little hard for the walking group, a little sweaty, but but I want to do another one. And I think it's a great way to chat with people. Also create a new kind of book group, do a self-help book group or a post-adoption book group, or, and try to be in person, try to get that human connection. you know, all the other good stuff, adoption happy hour. Yes. And then this is my big other shout out that I just wanted to finish up with is music. The other thing that I stumbled on, and I think someone told me about this years ago, it got me through graduate school, but I am a huge fan of binaural beats. And if you, we can, again, I don't have to, you can Google it, but it's different music at different frequencies that are good for different things. And I often write my paperwork or will write a proposal or write a report that I have to do listening to my binaural beats. They're on YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube and you plug all that in, you will find I go to sleep to it. I will meditate to it. I will walk to it. It is so fabulous. So these are different frequency musics that you can look up. A new one that I've recently only come around about is brown noise too, because I'm not a white noise person. I have a noise canceller machine on the other side. You can't see, obviously I'm pointing, but you can't see. But I have a noise canceling machine here, and to keep privacy, because I'm in a medical office, and I hate it. Every time it's done, I turn it off. Like I can't, I'm not a good white noise person. So brown noise is really much more calming. And of course, there's chanting. You can listen to other people chant besides just you chanting. And so I have the chant that I like to do. I bought it on iTunes, and there's a woman who does it. And so I do it with her, in the morning, and I love it. And it makes me very happy. So it's just important to get creative, get kooky, get wild. I have more ideas when in our next, little bit, but it's so important to just find what works for you. Find something that works for you. It doesn't have to be who cares what other people are doing or thinking. If it works for you, that's what matters. And all of this will help you help you allow your emotions to exist, to notice them. All of this helps you make space. And that's why my company is called Finding Spaces, because I want you to be able to find space for your healing. And if we find space, then the space is there, by the way. We just have to find it. We have to excavate it. And if you find it, you can fill it with all this great stuff, and you can allow your emotions to exist, and you can really show up for those around you. So thank you so much, guys. I think I talked a little fast, but I was like, oh.
Thanks, Macy. We're going to go ahead now and open it up, because I know there are plenty of you out there that have questions. So we want to go ahead and stop the recording.
Great.